Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
Happy Tuesday, all you minties. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of all of these collected editions coming out the week of July 23rd or 24th of 2024. So what we're looking at here is, oh my gosh, we have a lot. And thank goodness that I had read most of the books in here already in different formats. However, some of them I had never read before, like the Spider-Man 2099, or some of these She-Hulk issues, because I wasn't getting She-Hulk back then. However, we do have a lot of big collections, a reprint of an Epic collection, a new Epic collection, a new Marvel Masterworks, although it has been collected before in Epic collection. As always, I leave timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're just interested in a couple of books, or in case you don't want any kind of spoilers, you already know you're going to get it. But I do that also, you know, in case people want to take a first look at all these books and seeing if the art is for you or the type of stories in there are for you. And before I go any further, yes, that's my thumb. It is up. Don't forget to smash that like button. Please, that goes a long way for us here on the channel. Very small thing you can do, but it means the world to us. We have a lot to talk about, so that's enough of all that. Let's go ahead and start with the thinnest and only thin collected edition this week, and that is the Spider-Man 2099 Miguel O'Hara. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. So we are back in the world of Spidey 2099. I will just go ahead and say that the stuff collected in here is not collected in either one of the two Omnis. As a matter of fact, neither is Exodus. These are the stories that are written by Steve Orlando. And we do have several artists working with him, like Def Malia, Pramanik, and Michael Dowling, Jason Moore, Jonas Trinity, and Stefano Raphael, just to name a few of the artists that are working on this book. This collects Miguel O'Hara Spider-Man 2099. And it makes for an interesting collection. This book, by the way, has 120 pages and retails for $17.99. And by interesting is because we haven't really seen this side of the 2099 universe. Okay, we've seen a little bit of the horror side, but we haven't seen the side how Miguel O'Hara deals with it. And you have a supporting cast back, like Lila, but it features characters like Zombie 2099, and I hate adding that number to the title of these characters or the name of these characters, but in each issue, it leads into the next one. I know that's stupid to say, but you know, some stories are standalone. Each of these issues continues into the next one, and it goes deeper and deeper into another monster that he's going to be dealing with. So as I mentioned, you have Zombie, then you have Dracula showing up through here. I want to keep the last one as a surprise for people. You have Werewolf by Night. This one actually has ties to some of Miguel's family. And there might be a Moon Knight 2099 through these pages as well. This is the one that really surprised me. Like I said, I'll leave the last one and a couple of other Easter eggs in there for people to find out. This is the one that features Terror. And Terror Incorporated was this obscure character in the 90s that could pretty much reattach his limbs or reattach other people's limbs to his body. But this time around, he has a big fight with Miguel O'Hara. And of course, this is what happens when superheroes get to meet each other. There's a huge clash and misunderstandings. So just like in the 616 universe, except in the 2099 universe. I do love the fact that we do have a continuation of these characters. By the way, I forgot to mention that Rick Leonardi, yes, co-creator of Spidey 2099, does one of the hidden gem covers. So they do have some variant covers on the opposite side of the standard edition covers, but in the back is where you're going to find some in thumbnail and then some in splash. But these are like the design variant covers, and again in thumbnails. But that is Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, even though the books themselves are called Miguel O'Hara Spider-Man 2099. Savage Avengers by Gerry Duggan. This was such an awesome series. And this is one that comes as a big surprise. And that is mainly due to a character that shows up on this cover. And that is the... No, I'm not talking about the Punisher Skull. I am actually talking about Conan. What? So this one completely surprised me, along with Peter and all of us that were doing the Marvel solicitations that we do monthly. By the way, that one has been pushed back until next Thursday because of San Diego Comic-Con. So this collects Savage Avengers 1 through 12, Annual number 1, Savage Avengers number 0, which is pretty much issues 190 and 191 of Uncanny X-Men. I love those issues. And then the material from Free Comic Book Day 2099, Avengers, Savage Avengers, which kicks off the series. They tell you a little bit as to what happened previously that features our main character, but you have Gerry Duggan writing the story. You have Mike Deodato Jr. drawing a majority of it, Kim Jacinto, Ron Garney, Pat Schercher, Butch Guys, Greg Smallwood, Adam Gorham, just to name a few. But this is so weird. First of all, I want to say that this book is not an epic, but it is technically the size of an epic collection. Like, it is thick. It has 392 pages. It retails for $44.99. So, I mean, it's practically like a modern epic. I'm honestly surprised they still have been coming out with these type of books. I'm glad they're doing thickies, by the way. I love these books. But they don't really give them a brand. We're going to look at a couple of others. And what this is Conan the Barbarian coming into modern day Marvel Universe. And as much as it states that it is the Savage Avengers, because you have Dr. Voodoo in here, you've got Wolverine, you've got Deadpool, you've got the Punisher, you've got Venom, you've got Elektra. This is really the story of Conan the Barbarian. And his dealings with the modern world and how he's trying to go after Kulan Gath, who plays the big villain throughout this. And it's almost like... Oh, by the way, this is how the spread pages are handled because it is a trade paperback, right? This was available in an omnibus format and in other skinny trades. But even though it's called Savage Avengers, to me this always felt like Conan in modern day, guest starring blank, fill in the blank. It doesn't matter because this is a Conan story and it's one that's done so well. Every issue focuses on Conan and how he's dealing with this new world and going after Kulan Gath until he reaches his world where he's supposed to be. This is an awesome team-up issue with the Punisher right there. There's an issue here with Dr. Doom, actually, playing a big part towards like the last act in this particular collection here. So having a meeting, having a sit down with the character of Conan the Barbarian, I've just really enjoyed this series. If you want to see a deeper dive into it, because we got a lot of books to talk about, I have done an overview of the omnibus if you want to go and check that out. This is practically the first half of the Omni. So issue number 0, for people that are wondering how is this collected, has 2 of my favorite amazing issues of Uncanny X-Men that are so underrated. And that is issues 190 and 191. So it's when pretty much Kulan Gath decides that he is going to turn Manhattan into his own parallel universe. So you have like the swords and sorcery type of characters that were once X-Men, that were once citizens of Manhattan. And it makes for a really cool story. Only a few of our heroes can remember the world that was supposed to be. And then we get a continuation. Whoa, what is this rated? Parental advisory. Good call, good call. Doesn't show any naughty bits or anything, but you know, you never know. And then we get a continuation of the story. Again, focusing more on Conan than the other characters. I mean, they get a little bit of a spotlight, but not so much so as Conan does. This goes through like the King in Black storyline in here, and you're going to be seeing basically how Conan reacts to modern world and all these team-ups he's having. So this is the first half, and I think Volume 2 comes out next year. I think it's already been solicited, if I'm not mistaken. Eternals by Kieron Gillen. And this right here was one of a lot of people's most wanted omnibus or oversized hardcover to kind of go along with the Judgment Day omnibus that we got last year. But this pretty much collects the 3 trade paperbacks right here of Eternals, Only Death is Eternal, Hell Thanos, and A History Written in Blood. However, it does not contain the what if issues in here, which are the backup stories talking about the Eternals and their whole ties to the cosmic universe. So the stuff in here has been collected before, but now it's available in one place, so you don't have to go and seek out 3 trade paperbacks. Will it ever be available as an oversized hardcover omnibus? I really don't know. So we do have all of this written by Kieron Gillen. You do have artwork by Ezad Ribic and Gui Villanova. You have Dustin Weaver, Kei Zama, and Ryan Bodeheim and Edgar Salazar doing some of the art for the one-shots. So this is something I've already talked about. Pretty much every one of those single trade paperbacks I've talked about. And what this is, to kind of give you a quick synopsis, is the Eternals are being reborn. It's been a while since we've seen the Eternals in the 616 universe, and now they're being reborn. And some of them are being reborn in a different way. And yes, I'm sure it had a lot to do with the cast of the movie when it was coming out, that they probably look a lot more like their cast counterpart than they did the past comic book parts. Some of them, like Icarus, still looks the same. He doesn't look like the Rob Stark. Cannot remember his name. But it also brings in the character of Thanos, which makes for a really interesting story. All of this, by the way, sets up the events of Judgment Day, which is a big crossover between the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Eternals. The Eternals are noticing that there's something going on in Mars, and what has awakened on Mars that gets their interest, and it makes for a really cool story. So they have been waking up. This is the story of the Eternals, and you don't need to have read anything that came before this. By the way, this has 384 pages and retails for $44.99. And what I mean is that you don't need to have read anything before this. Gillen does such an amazing job of reintroducing you to the concept of who the Eternals were, where they've been, and also the different types of houses that they belong to. You get to learn a little bit about their arch nemesis, of course, not just the deviants, but also get to learn about their secret history, and that's told through some of these one-shots here. And beautiful one-shots. By the way, Dustin Weaver's art just really channeling like Jack Kirby, I think. That's just my opinion. But there's also this talk of this being known as Uranus, and Uranus will play a big part, or Uranus, yes, will play a big part in the big war that's to come in Judgment Day. Yes, this guy. And how is he related to Thanos, and how is he related to the Eternals? So this does, like the last few issues, does set up exactly leading up to Judgment Day. So in the back we do have design variants, some in splash pages, some of them in thumbnail size, and other type of variants, including one here by Joe Quesada, and all kinds of artists. So it's the same kind of material that has been collected in those trade paperbacks, but this time around it's just in one thick trade. And this thick trade, again, doesn't say Epic Collection, doesn't say Complete Collection or Modern Epic or even Saga, but it is as thick as some of these Epic collections. So, another one of those stickies that they've been coming out with. X-Men Reign of X by Jonathan Hickman. So, this is called X-Men Reign of X, and there's Hickman, Yu, Alangilan, and Go, Volume 1. Telling you what is collected in here, who it's by, and a little bit of synopsis. So we are talking about the stories collecting X-Men after the House and Powers of X, where we have a brand new status quo for not just the X-Men, but pretty much all of mutant kind. And the stories in here are written by Jonathan Hickman. This is the breakdown of who the artists are, the colorists, the letters. Jerry Alangolan, who passed away back in 2020 doing some of his final work here with his good friend Lionel Francis Yu. So this collects X-Men 1 through 9, Giant Size X-Men Jean Grey and Emma Frost, and Giant Size X-Men Nightcrawler number 1. This book has 336 pages and retails for $39.99. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, if you haven't read House and Powers of X, just a little bit of a spoiler as to what's happening here. So in these very pages, we do have the new status quo of X-Men. X-Men can now be resurrected. They're all living in Krakoa. And not just X-Men, mutant kind can be resurrected. So we see a new lineup of X-Men. We see Cyclops, we see Jean Grey, and pretty much the extended family that they have, and all of them living together on the moon, like Corsair and even Vulcan and Alex. It makes for a really interesting, like, what are all these characters doing together type of scenario, which a lot of us enjoy because there's been a lot of theories over the years as to the relationship between the Summers brothers and exactly how close they are to their father. So when Corsair comes in and plays a big part through this, I don't know, I just really like that dynamic. The only one that kind of threw me off was Vulcan, just the way that he was acting. We do have pretty much the foundation of what's to come, and that is in the Swords of X storyline. And of course, Orcus and what they're doing to mutant kind while the X-Men are dealing with, like, the Children of the Vault. And the Children of the Vault play a huge part in all of this. We start setting up the tradition of X-Men and mutants when they're reborn on Krakoa. Like I mentioned, just making for a new status quo and an awesome story. This is the giant size issue. That is the quiet issue, if you will. A throwback to that classic Nuff Said issue by Grant Morrison. But it is both Emma Frost and Jean Grey going deep into Storm's mind to find out why she got sick all of a sudden. And that leads into the story that is the giant-sized Nightcrawler, this one drawn by Alan Davis. And Emma Frost and Jean Grey one by Russell Dodderman. And man, do I miss his internal artworks. I know he's focusing more and more on covers, but I do miss those internal art pieces. And then, of course, the extras, such as the covers here, textless covers. So collecting those first 9 issues, plus your variant covers of not just the first 9 issues, but also those giant size issues. 336 pages, $39.99. It is a little confusing that they called it Reign of X because the stuff in here was known as the Dawn of X era. So that is something to keep in mind. Thunderbolts, Acceptable Losses. This is another one of those thick books. Not quite an epic collection, but also not quite a skinny trade. What we're looking at here is stuff that has not been collected in any of the Omnis, but it has been collected in a series of trade paperbacks. This is the other part of Andy Diggle's run. We had another trade paperback that had some of Andy Diggle's run, and then the beginning of the Jeff Parker era. And that Jeff Parker era is also not collected in omnibus format. It does follow the Dark Reign trade paperback, and this is way, way later. So this collects issues 132 to 143 of the Thunderbolts, and then the Secret Warrior 7 through 9, which makes for a really cool, not quite crossover, $44.99, 376 pages. And by now, we have the era of Thunderbolts that is being... I don't want to say led by Norman Osborn, but pretty much he's the one behind the scenes. This is the era when we get the new Black Widow, or Black Widow 2, Yelena Belova, and she's leading the team of Thunderbolts. During this time, you have Ghost, you have the Headman, you've got Scourge through these pages, who will end up joining the team. And then you've got Black Widow. Mr. X, a character from this guy right here from Wolverine, ends up joining the team. And one of the first order of business that they do is they go after Songbird. Like, Norman wants them to go and kill Songbird. So this is when Scourge comes around and offers his services. Ant-Man's part of the team, but this isn't Hank. So keep that in mind. This is a different character than Hank or Scott. And I will just leave it at that. So Mr. X ends up joining the team. Scourge ends up joining the team. And together, all of them are going after Songbird. So Songbird seeks the help of Nick Fury. And things get really interesting because there's a lot of twists and turns in this one. Such as what exactly the long game is of Yelena, who's, like I said, during this time, Black Widow, and what exactly is the secret of Scourge? Because Scourge, again, is a character that was developed by Mark Grunwald, but a little bit different during this time, though, and with a lot of twists and turns. All of this leading into the events of Siege, but not before the fight with Secret Warriors. And what's really cool about this, and I'm glad it's not broken up, like one issue of Thunderbolts, one issue of Secret Warriors, is that during the fight with Nick Fury and the Secret Warriors, you see the Thunderbolts side of things, and then you see the Secret Warriors side of things through those issues 7, 8, and 9. So I'm glad they're collected in here. The Thunderbolts end up going after Iron Fist and Luke Cage, and eventually this leads into the fight with the Mighty Avengers, and the fight on Siege. So this leads directly into the Jeff Parker era of Thunderbolts, which is the Thunderbolts Uncaged Omnibus, if you're wondering. Now, this isn't available in omnibus format. Oh, there's also a fight with Agents of Atlas. Solid story. This is not available in omnibus format. Neither was this book right here, the Dark Reign stories, nor the Warren Ellis stories. So it is definitely enough for one more omnibus to fit right between volume 3 and the Jeff Parker Uncaged Omni. Oh, I love that. And 376 pages, $44.99. And for all you spine watchers out there, we have come to the point of the video where we look at all the spines, but also a kind reminder to gently hit and caress that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. All right, let's continue with the overviews. Almost dropped it there. Woo! Fantastic Four Epic Collection Into the Time Stream. This is the new printing. And volume 20, 1989 to 1990. Man, do I love this era. This is my original printing here. Let's check it out. Fantastic Four logo looks the same. Colors look the same. Let's look at the spines of the old and the new printing. Just a little bit darker in the old printing. In the back of the book, of course, the biggest difference is the price. This one's $39.99. This one is $49.99. This is one that you all voted for to get reprinted. And paper stock looking a little bit different. I mentioned that in my last video. It seems like the paper stock that they've used for these older ones have just a little bit, and I mean a tiny little bit of a yellow tint. And I've kept mine away from the sunlight. This one was printed 10 years ago. And finally, back to print. Yeah, whereas these have like a slicker feel to them. All right, so collected in here is Fantastic Four, 334 to 346. This one here is actually not drawn by Walter Simonson, but just the cover right there. And it is the beginning of the Acts of Vengeance story, which is so ridiculous. 334 to 346. And Fantastic Four Annual number 23. Material from New Mutants Annual number 6, X-Factor Annual 5, and X-Men Annual number 14. 504 pages, and retails for $49.99. So what we're looking at here is the beginning of the Walter Simonson era on Fantastic Four. And it kicks off with this really obscure but interesting and funny version of Acts of Vengeance. It's just Walter Simonson having fun with these characters. And what he does in Acts of Vengeance is a lot different than the Acts of Vengeance in other books, right? Like where you see like the Red Skull fighting Captain America, or you see the Mandarin fighting Wolverine in the pages of X-Men. These are goofy because it's the Fantastic Four testifying before Congress, because they're fighting against the whole Superhuman Registration Act, which, yes, they did that again later on in Civil War, but they were doing it back then, back in the late 80s and early 90s. So what ends up happening, how Acts of Vengeance gets in here, is that all these like C-list characters try to attack the courthouse and try to attack the Fantastic Four. But the main meat and potatoes of this is the big storyline where they travel through space and time. It is very important to note that during this time, Ben Grimm is not the Thing. It's actually Sharon. She is the Thing during this time. They do have a relationship, and everybody else is about the same during this particular time is how it kicks off. And this is the beginning. The second part of this is that new Fantastic Four Epic Collection. So here we have the Fantastic Four just going through space and time. whether it's an alternate dimension or whether it's going to the future and trying to defeat Galactus. This is the way Sharon looks. I love Walter Simonson's artwork, man. So good. Okay. But then we do get the big thing that wraps up this volume, and that is the Fantastic Four Annual number 23, which is the beginning of the Days of Future Present storyline, which will also be collected in the upcoming X-Men Omnibus, the Extinction Agenda, Days of Future Present Omnibus. And this is the story of Franklin Richards traveling from the future to the past to reunite with Rachel Summers. And man, I love this story. I will say that these backup stories right here will probably not be collected in that omnibus. They will just be part of this particular epic collection, or unless they give us a Walter Simonson omnibus one day. Maybe they'll be collected. Just like the New Mutant backup stories are not collected in here. Here we get to meet Banshee's new X-Men right here from the future, including Franklin Richards, including some characters that are no longer with us during this particular time. This is X-Factor's part. And then, of course, when Franklin Richards comes after Rachel, Ahab is right behind him, hunting down mutants, along with his hounds. Man, do I love this art right here by Arthur Adams and Dan Green supplying the inks. I love these guys that look like the characters from, I think it's supposed to be, the characters from RoboCop. Now, there was a lot of dispute as to this issue right here, this particular annual of Uncanny X-Men. This is annual number 14. As to whether this was really the first appearance of Gambit or not, because Gambit appears here before issue 266. Like, not in reading order, right? But in publishing order, this book came out before Uncanny 266. And Arthur Adams' beautiful artwork all the way in the back. Wanted to come back here really quick, just to state how much of a fan I am of this crossover. Especially by the time the New Mutants get involved, the whole confusion here as to who Cable's supposed to be, because during this time Louise Simonson and the editor still didn't know exactly what to make of Cable and what to do with him. So there's a little bit of a connection, or you're teased to a connection about him being perhaps a version of Ahab. But honestly, if you haven't picked this up and you've been missing it from your collection, this gets my seal of approval for this week. I love the stories in here. Walter Simonson sure as hell knows how to write these characters, and you get treated to his artwork too, which is so nice. Plus, you throw Shellhead in there and the Asgardian God for some fun time traveling or dimension hopping adventures. Absolutely awesome. Why am I shutting it? We do have the extras like the interviews and Marvel Age. A little bit of the Fred Hembeck stuff back here. The many faces of the Thing. You have Marvel Age and previews and then original art right here. Surprised these weren't full splash pages in the trade paperback cover there by Mike Mignola. As far as like the internal artwork though, and the way that it looks compared to the original printing, really it looks a lot more clear and crisp. I don't know why that is. It could be to this satin type of paper that they're using, so you know it's got this like semi-gloss feel to it. I don't know, maybe it's the colors, maybe it's the inks that just really stand out compared to the original printing. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the original printing, by the way. Just a little bit of the yellowing that's going on. It's like the second one I've noticed that it does that, but for some reason the blues just stand out and pop out a little bit more here than they do in the original printing. But that is the Fantastic Four Into the Time Stream. She-Hulk Epic Collection To Die and Live in LA. And this is Epic Collection of Shulky, Volume 6. No word of future volumes yet, like the Dan Slott run, or the Rainbow Rowell run, Charles Soule's run. Those have had like complete collections and fatties though. And Dan Slott's run has had the omnibus treatment, as well as trade paperbacks. But here is the tail end of the original sensational She-Hulk series wrapping up, with all of these creators like Kelly Corvette, Scott Benson, Shirley Fish, Michael Urey, Dan Slott coming in and doing that Doc Samson story. And then you have artists like Dave Hoover, Tom Morgan, Todd Britton, Paul Pelletier, Ken Lashley, Pat O'Leaf doing a lot of the breakdowns, and then inks right here by Tom Morgan, Robert Campanella, Mike DiCarlo, colors by Kelly Corvette, Glynis Oliver, Christy Scheel. Lettering by Michael Higgins, Brad Joyce, and Joe Rosen. Joe Rosen, one of my favorite letterers of all time. So collected in here is Sensational She-Hulk 51 through 60, wrapping up that run. Doc Samson 1 through 4. Incredible Hulk 441 and 442. The Thing and She-Hulk The Long Night. And then material from Marvel Comics Presents 123 to 126. And Incredible Hulk 412. 480 pages, $44.99. And there's She-Bat right there. But we do meet this character that has a big hate on She-Hulk, who looks a lot like She-Hulk, but this is Adrenazon? Yeah, that's her name. And there is a reason why she's after She-Hulk, and it has a really kind of a sad ending, honestly. But after that fight, we get to meet the Gopher in this issue right here, who is the brand new character, Tommy. And that leads into what this story is named after, this epic collection is named after, and that is the To Live and Die in LA. Love this cover by Adam Hughes. Actually, love a lot of the artwork through here. So, what this is, by the way, all written by Michael Urey, this 6-part storyline, is that Jen has a near-death experience. Like, she actually dies in codes. And this issue is just so trippy, where she gets to see a lot of the dead Marvel characters. And when I say dead Marvel characters, I mean during this particular time. So you have Bucky Barnes, the original Captain America's sidekick. You have the Mimic. So you have a lot of characters. The Kangaroo, the original Green Goblin. And it's funny when you go back and see that. You're like, wait, some of those characters are alive these days. But yeah, not during this time. This makes for a really cool story because it's really the relationship. Actually, this whole last few issues is really the relationship between She-Hulk, Jennifer, and her father, and what she's willing to do to reconnect with him, because they haven't had the strongest relationship in a while. You have the fight against the Hulk, because she does eventually end up going savage. So we have the return of the savage She-Hulk, and it's the fight against the Incredible Hulk, and we have the return of the Gopher right here. And we have a lot of supporting casts that are back, such as Wyatt. He ends up coming back, and a couple of others. This is really nice. Anytime I see a courtroom, I can't believe I'm saying that, because it is cool to be reminded that she is a lawyer. So it's nice to see that she's still practicing law. And very rare, but we do have the actual caption boxes there on the cover. But here is the last issue. This is actually drawn by Pat O'Leaf, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, by now Pat O'Leaf is doing the breakdowns. Towards the end, it's like Lim Kaminsky, and I think somebody else is Scott Benson doing the writing. I actually like the way this ends. Most of the stuff in here I've never read. I've only read some of To Live and Die in LA, and I hadn't read the stories with the Gopher in there. They're ridiculous, by the way. But it's fun because she gets to break the fourth wall. It's a comic that doesn't take itself seriously. I just want to show you this right here. There's a couple of surprises in here, but towards the end, like, they're like, hey, we need to wrap up some loose ends. So yeah, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get the editor in here. She's going to explain about the sales, how people are buying X-Men instead. And then She-Hulk just wants to thank everybody. Kind of, like I said, breaking the fourth wall. We have people, they're called the Marvel Movers, moving all the panels around. And that's it. That's the end of She-Hulk. There's a little bit of a twist with, like, the ending when they were like, let's wrap up the identity of this character. And she's like, yeah, it's me. And then we see the appearances of She-Hulk throughout the years here. So this one here by Peter David, and you have Paul Pelletier, who had drawn She-Hulk. So it's really nice to see him draw Shulky again against the Bi-Beast. We have the Doc Samson series, which it's not just She-Hulk, but she does play a big part, especially in the first half. But you have characters like Polaris showing up through here, and a character of Geiger showing up through here. And then whenever the Incredible Hulk was taken out of commission for a couple of issues, he was replaced by Jennifer here. So Angel Medina gets to draw these Peter David issues. And then this wraps up. By the way, those the Doc Samson issues were written by Dan Slott, with the one-shot right here, The Thing and She-Hulk, The Long Night. And yes, the Dragon Man does end up appearing through here. And another gentleman that has drawn She-Hulk, the series, and that is Brian Hitch, doing the art here. And whoa, that's John Romita Jr., Steve Geiger right there. Wow! Yeah, look at the fire coming out of that volcano. And some more of the Marvel swimsuit specials, of course. But also Doc Samson, not just Shulky. That's right. Everybody getting some love. So not really many extras, honestly, compared to others, right? Like here's some letter pages and afterwards about the final issue, the holiday special pinup, and then, yeah, the Marvel swimsuit pinups right there. 480 pages, $44.99. Last but certainly not least is the Marvel Masterworks, The Defenders Volume 9. So this one here has 312 pages and retails for $75. So collecting issues 92 to 102 of The Defenders, as well as the Marvel Team Up 101, which is actually how this book is kicked off. And it becomes a really important part of the story with this character of Mindy. You do have a wonderful introduction here by J.M. DeMatteis, and I just need to stop and talk about this. I love reading introductions. I love reading the behind the scenes of the stories. Because I've read these stories before. This has been released in epic format. But it was nice just to kind of get a breakdown of what was happening behind the scenes. Not so much so as like, this is what happens in this issue. This is what happens in this issue. But more along the lines of, this is where I was. And reading comics, reading collections like this, work like a time machine that take you back to a particular time of your life. And I love that about comics. I know people get that from video games. I know people get that from music, and people get that from movies. I get it from comics. I love connecting to somebody like J.M. DeMatteis like that, who will be on my show next Wednesday. Yeah, the 31st, July 31st. I'm interviewing him, and I cannot wait to talk to him. But it's just amazing that he feels like that too. It's like you forget that you're an adult, and he goes, like when he's talking about reading those Fantastic Four issues by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, you forget you're an adult and you're a kid again, being lost in the marvel of comics. And for him, this was like going back to the writer that he used to be and how he was still tweaking his way around. I just love reading that introduction. So the Marvel Team Up does feature the character of Nighthawk. By now, we have this really interesting group of defenders. You have Valkyrie, you have the Hulk, you have Son of Satan, you have the character of Doctor Strange, like I mentioned, Nighthawk. And then you get the character of Gargoyle making his first appearance through this very Marvel Masterwork right here. And then eventually you get the Devil Slayer. It's interesting to have a team with the Devil Slayer and Son of Satan. But what this pretty much is like all of it leading up to the Six Finger storyline, which was part of that Epic collection. But this eclectic bunch just ends up going through all these different troubles and like this lineup that shakes because we have Patsy Walker that finds out a horrible secret about why she was given to the six-fingered hand. You have Dracula making an appearance, but all of this leading into issue 100. So you have a bunch of like mini demons, or not real big and strong demons, but getting stronger and stronger, and then just pretty much leading up to the hell on Earth. So the six-fingered hand storyline is just episodic, but it becomes a huge epic that builds into that double-sized conclusion that features all of these demons just wrecking loose here on Earth. And it sees the defenders taking on these demons and then the forces around the world. And then who is exactly pulling the strings. It makes for a really interesting story and a lot different than like Steve Gerber's run on, of course, the Defenders. And then all the way in the back, the character Mindy does get to come back into Kyle's life. You have original artwork here by Don Perlin and Joe Sinnott. Joe Sinnott, of course, being the inker. Have some art in here from Al Milgrom. This is the portfolio here. And then the biographies on these wonderful creators and other Marvel Masterworks. But that is it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're already collecting and you're hoping to pick up future volumes, which ones you've already gotten in omnibus format, which ones you hope come out in omnibus format, which ones you hope one day will get a full collected edition in any kind of thick format, no matter if it's a trade paperback or an omnibus or hardcover. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Thank you everybody for watching. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.